Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to talk about physical games on PlayStation 5 and the state of what's going on right now, which I will say right off rip here, this is not really a conversation about the software ratio, digital versus physical, will we have discs in the future, and it's really not about that, to be honest with you, but I will acknowledge that first in the here and now, which is I've got Sony's fiscal year 2024 Q1 financial report pulled up. This is their supplemental information page, where they often will disclose the software ratio for their games. And as most people know, we've had recent years where the ratio is favoring digital more and more. It was really accelerated during the COVID period where people were stuck home and they had to download games instead of going out to a store or even ordering games. I mean, it became a much more normal thing. And really for most of the PlayStation 5 cycle with those COVID peaks, it did start leveling out around 70-something%, give or take, like another 5 to 8%. So we can see like throughout fiscal year 23, which was still not that long ago, you've got the 72, 67, 66, averaging out at 70. But fiscal year 24 Q1 was a new peak. That's actually the biggest peak that was even higher than some of the midst of the COVID years. 80% primarily digital, which is certainly noteworthy. But the huge caveat here, and it's not like full-blown misinformation, but I still think it's like a more nuanced thing to understand, which is when it comes to this ratio number from Sony, that includes all full game downloads on PSN, and that really runs the gamut in terms of like the pricing for those games. We're talking about the sheer volume of stuff that comes out on PSN. If it's a 99-cent full game, that counts. If it's a $5 game, $10 game, all those bullshit games on PSN that hand out platinums, those are full game downloads that maybe you don't sell nearly as much as some of the bigger titles out there, but it is still something to bear in mind when we're talking about the sheer volume of games on PSN versus the retail space at any given time at your local Target, Walmart, Best Buy, and obviously things get fulfilled online and things like that, and there's print runs that we have to acknowledge as well, but this varies from platform holder. If we look at what we saw from the Insomniac breach, where it turns out from a publisher point of view, PlayStation Studio games, as recent as, I think this is from February 2022, but you can see right here, we've got PlayStation 5 era games here, and the digital ratio is actually, in most cases, lower. People want to buy PlayStation Studio games physically, and the demand is there. Now, this was 2 years ago, and 2 years ago, plausibly, a lot can change within 2 years, so I will, bear that in mind, but it's still pretty alarming to know that 2 years ago, this actually was favoring a lot of these games physically at retail. So again, it's a publisher by publisher thing. It's going to vary between that. It varies from the platform holders as well. Nintendo still does a lot of physical software. Sony less so. Microsoft much less so. So in terms of that overarching conversation, just to sort of get that out there, I think it's important to understand the nuance of the conversation, and I safely expect, in theory, we could keep having discs well into PlayStation 6. It's just a matter of Sony has to offer them. If they continue offering them, which I think they will, hopefully, then that means we'll still probably see a lot of games getting bought and sold physically. But with that in mind, what I really wanted to go over is simply the state of, sort of buying and selling and enjoying physical games on PlayStation 5, because 4 years in, and we're kind of in the middle of the life cycle, we are seeing a lot of strange cases now that are atypical compared to, say, launch aligned with PlayStation 4, a console that was still a bit more traditional in terms of how you bought and played your video games, which was at retail and physical media. So I've got a number of examples here I wanted to run over. Let's first touch on, LRG games, some of those limited print companies and things like that. Grounded, fully yoked edition. This game just came out, and this happens a lot with LRG games or any limited print title, which is, there's that window to pre-order, then it's sold out, then you can't get it anymore. It's always been available on PS, and obviously, or in a lot of cases, before the physical print actually gets announced, so there's always availability for the game there. But by the time the game does come out, you will see that the market is trying to figure out if the game is going to either stay at the MSRP the game came out, maybe a little bit lower, and some titles will be, like if they're a bit more notable, if it's a really good game and people want the game on disc, you might see some sales tick in for people that miss that window and they're willing to pay a premium for it. We only have one for Grounded, but you can see from the eBay listing so far, sellers are trying to sort of gauge that interest here. And so you've got listings at 90, like these are games that are now in hand. So there's not many sales, but this is the kind of title where in theory it might end up going for a little bit over. And this is also a title that was not distributed via outside LRG, I should say, which is noteworthy there given that they have numbered releases. Let's talk about Scorn Deluxe Edition. This game actually was available at retail. It was going through regular distribution channels. Not a huge print run, but it was at your Best Buy, your Amazon, things like that. And so it kind of sat on the secondhand market for a little bit. Not long, mind you, but for around MSRP. Shoots back up to quite a bit, and this is also like a very, I don't know if niche is the right word here, but it is an H.R. Giger horror game to a degree, and if you know anything about retro video games, you know horror games tend to command a very high price tag, so by the time the game sells out, it starts going for a lot of money until, what's this, a little bit of a correction. That is because a reprint was announced. We have it right here from VGP. VGP has been picking up a lot of reprints lately, which is fantastic. I would love to see them really start nailing down more of these quite often, but it's actually in the window right now, so you can get a pre-order in, and they're going to fulfill these very soon, October 2024. So I imagine some of these sales right here, people just for whatever reason maybe being impatient, or there's just a certain variant where they want this print. I'm not sure if there's going to be a huge difference on that. One example too, Disco Elysium The Final Cut. I mean, this is what's really kind of alarming, is that in some scenarios, right, initially iam8bit, a limited print company, tried to paywall this behind a big collector's edition. Then they saw some pushback and said, okay, we'll sell the base game a la carte, but that's still a window to pre-order the game and commit to buying it then. Some people don't do that. You miss that window. 2022, the game is in hand, being sold on eBay, $100-something plus, and got to keep in mind, like, this is 2022. This is like 2 years into PlayStation 5. And yes, there are physical PS5 games out there that are selling over $100-something. It's not frequent. This was actually one of like 2 games, I think, at the time that were doing that. But it's just, something to really keep in mind about this stuff. And if you primarily play digital and you're watching this just to, I guess, just to be curious, but this is sort of what the market is doing for these games, especially because these titles are still always available on PSN. They're not hard to get in any way, or if you're just looking to simply play the game, it really is a premium nowadays to, own the game and play it physically, or even just collect it physically. Now, you can see the game is correcting a bit here, going down in price, because it is now just available. $24.99, and you can just pick up this game. I'm not sure if there's a lot left of this, but I imagine the game will probably sell out now by the time you're watching this. I don't necessarily want to influence the market, so I'm trying to use examples here that are sort of already course corrected, or kind of they've had their time on the market to a degree. Also wanted to mention this one as well. TMNT Shredder's Revenge Ultimate Edition. This just got put up on LRG. They are going to distribute this as well, I think, so it should go up on your like Amazon and maybe Best Buy or something like that. I don't think they do Best Buy anymore, but whatever the case is, this is a weird one too, because now we've got examples of, and this is not really an LRG thing, this is like the studio and the publisher where they keep making new content for the game. So this is like the 3rd time they've printed this game. So it's in a way annoying, because let's say you maybe bought it initially, but now there's more prints, and so it's like, okay, you have your game, you can still play it, but you've got, a version that on disc, not all the content is there, so you have to pull the rest from PSN. And, nowadays people are being a lot more mindful of content on the disc, and they want to know that everything is on there, so God forbid if there's, some time down the road where you want to be able to play it offline, you can safely install it and get all that content offline as well. Now, there are going to be other examples where you've got a big game. Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate. Now, I've got the PS Store here because I want to truly highlight this. It's on sale right now, for one, so it's cheap, but it was on PS Plus Essential back in the day. That was like 2-something years ago. I'm not sure if that was when they were calling it Essential, but, it was on PS Plus, monthly game. After a year, they let you actually get the PS5 upgrade because they were giving the PS4 version out at the time. Then I think you still had to buy Integrate separately. But either way, like, a lot of people got this game attached to their PSN ID. It's also available on Extra right now too, so you can subscribe to that. If you want to play the game, it is not an issue. It's very affordable. If you want the game on disc, however, it is a lot. I mean, this game did sit for quite a bit as well. I believe it only had like 1 reprint, so there's really not a whole lot of them floating around out there, and this was like right in like the first year of PlayStation 5 coming out, so Not really a scenario where like a lot of people even have the opportunity to go out and buy it. Well, I guess they could in theory, just not have a console. But you know, it did kind of have a low of like 25 to 30 bucks. There's always a window here. That's the, you know, I don't want to say it's an issue, but it's something to be really mindful of, is that you always have that window to get it at the lowest possible price. But it's just a little bit alarming that for some games, based on the notoriety and the je ne sais quoi to it, if it's a really big game, high profile, and you want it on disc, you can see where Rebirth starts to come out here, and people want this game next to Rebirth. It's going for a lot of money, and then you've got a little bit of a course correction here, but it's a lot of money, you know? That's kind of insane. Same thing happened with Alan Wake Remastered. This game is really affordable, and right when it came out, I think the MSRP was 30 bucks. So you've got that small window where like not a lot of people are buying it. I think Remedy said at the time that this game actually did not do all that well, so that's why they only did one physical print for the game as well. So sitting around your $15, $16, pretty affordable. And then boom, what's going on here? Well, Alan Wake 2 came out for one, so people want this game next to that game, which was digital, and now a physical print's being released finally. But yeah, it's going up in price. You can see PlayStation Store here, $9.89. Actually, if it wasn't on sale, you would be paying MSRP. But even that's going to be cheaper than what people are asking for with this game on the secondhand market. Now, let's talk about something that's maybe happening on a smaller scale. That being Bugsnax on PlayStation 5. This game, I love it, but it was available as a monthly game early on with PlayStation 5. You had to wait much longer to finally get a physical print. 40 bucks, being done by Fangamer over time. I think they had a few prints of this game, multiple prints. Was always widely available. Then it was distributed as well, so then it would show up on Amazon and things like that. So you always had a pretty big window to get the game for a cheap amount. But it looks like it's dried up, and now it is starting to scale a bit higher for the secondhand market. In fact, these numbers are looking a little bit not on track with where the game reasonably is, because you've got some sales here that are actually touching $60 for Bugsnax now, which is kind of insane. Sealed copies, of course, but it's just a fascinating thing to consider, because this game is not hard to, like, if you want to play the game, it's $8 on sale. It's on PlayStation Plus Extra, even if you did miss that window to claim it via PlayStation Plus. It's just, there's a lot of examples now where you're waiting longer for these games, you're paying more for these games, and if you wait beyond that period, you might end up paying a premium now for these games. Which was a trend, certainly, like late life cycle PlayStation 4, I would say as well. Once, you know, the limited print companies got a lot more popular and things like that. But like a lot of LRG stuff, if it's just sort of a game that is, you know, it might be really cool, but if it's not like really well known or something, those games do tend to like sit for around the same price that they were sold on LRG, or they would be maybe even a little bit less. I've got some LRG games that are like, I could not sell them for what I paid for them. So they've done a lot of games nowadays. A lot of the limited print stuff is not like a surefire investment thing, which I would never call games an investment, but you just have to bear in mind you are fighting with other collectors that want these games. How about Evil West? This game also available on Plus, but you know, came out kind of a mediocre game, so I think it only had one print, and it really kind of just stayed around 50, 60 bucks, and you know, that's a lot. It's actually, yeah, holding quite well, going above $60. Another one, which is a different case here, Dirt 5, PS4, PS5, launch title on PlayStation 5, mind you, and this game actually normally is MSRP on PSN, but it's like super cheap. I did not expect all these games to be on sale by the time I was filming this conversation, but I guess this is a good caveat to mention here, which is these are like cherry-picked examples. These are really not the norm just yet, but I think it's noteworthy to even, you know, look at these cherry-picked examples, because we're only 4 years into the console, and you're seeing a lot of this stuff happen nowadays where, like, it's not always a surefire guarantee anymore that physical is cheaper. Now, physical still always has that leverage, the leverage being that you have consumer power in mind. If you're a little bit savvy and patient and you know how to navigate this stuff well, you can wait for sales, somebody lends games to you, you could buy it from a friend, trade into the game, and sell your stuff to buy new games, and there's price matching and different retailers price matching. There's so many avenues to get physical media cheaper versus the one storefront that you have to choose from on PSN, where you have to wait for the publisher to give you a sale. And so there are so many games that are just sitting there 2, 3, 4 years old now, and they still cost full price. But depending on the game, it's not going to always be a surefire thing that you will get it for that price on the secondhand market. You had a window to get Dirt 5 for you know, a little affordable, $26. I think some people would maybe look at 26 back then in July 2022 and think, no, I'll just wait for the game to be like $10. Well, it may never be $10 because it's floating around 50 something bucks. And I want to show this off too. Dirt 5 on PS4, I mean, this is like the thing too, right? It's PlayStation 5 in particular. People want the PS5 versions of these games. When the new console comes out, this is what I was getting at like immediately during all the cross-gen debate and people, you know, complaining about cross-gen and this and that. It's like, okay, but people are buying these consoles in droves, and not only that, they're buying the PS5 versions of these games. Like, people are still relatively quick in the same manner that they always were to buy the new console and start buying the new versions of these games. You know what I mean? So Dirt 5 on PS4, which has a free PS5 upgrade, the demand is simply not there. Now, it does depend on the print run too. I mean, there could be a lot more copies of Dirt 5 in circulation on PlayStation 4, but I'll tell you, there's many examples where the PS5 version always commands a higher price tag. But with that in mind, I just feel like we're in a very... I don't know if awkward is the right word to use here, but when buying and owning physical media on PlayStation 5, it's no longer this surefire thing of like it's always cheaper. Like, again, if you can navigate it well, it will be cheaper, but you really do have to rethink the buying process, and I certainly have when it comes to a lot of PS5 titles. I mean, there are games where, like, if it's on LRG and it has a window up for pre-order, and I can like gauge the interest of that game, and I know it's going to be very big and maybe a lot more expensive down the road, like I make sure to get it then and there. A lot of third-party publishers. I mean, a lot of games that come out and, you know, let's say they put out a fiscal report and they say, oh, this game didn't do all that well. They might not have any interest in printing the game again. So now you have a little bit of like knowledge of like, oh, maybe I should grab that game now, even though it's, let's say, $35. It may never dip below $35, or you might have to just come in right as it's being liquidated. You know what I mean? It's you really have to be careful about it nowadays in a manner that is not this surefire thing where it's always cheaper than PSN. I mean, we have to give PSN some credit nowadays. I mean, it's not, you know, like Steam sales, it's not humble bundles or anything like that, but PSN is almost always running sales with thousands of games available. So you can also be a bit patient and savvy on that end too, and probably come out a lot cheaper than what's happening on the secondhand market with physical video games. It really is becoming, in a lot of cases, a premium. You're waiting longer for these games. You might be paying more for these games, a lot more, beyond MSRP when these games initially came out. So it's a fascinating thing to look at. I mean, I think it's more reflective of that demand, which has been, you know, it's a tug of war on the demand for some that still enjoy buying and playing physical games, and the decline of physical media as well, because there's still a lot of us that enjoy it. But when that doesn't align with the prints that are available for these games on a title by title basis, it does get a bit tough to reconcile with. So with that in mind, I just wanted to, you know, have a talk about that, because I think in another 4 years, this could get maybe a bit more ugly with more games. There's a lot of titles right now that I think, man, that's probably going to go up. And I'm not even going to like list them or say anything, because like, again, earlier, I don't want to be responsible for influencing the price on any of these games or anything like that. But I just find that there is a lot of stuff that is maybe going to be a Dirt 5, maybe going to be an FF7 remake. It might not be happening right now, but it certainly could as these games sort of exhaust out. And there's always like external factors too down the road. Somebody can make a retrospective on a PS5 game in 3 years, and that one video could catapult the physical media sales for that game. So it's not like it used to be. Let's put it that way. So anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you all in my next one. You take it easy.